Welcome everyone to Ep.8 of Sam Gets Schooled. This week I've got another guest, Laurence, who's going to talk to us about a new topic which I have absolutely no idea about. Hi Laurence.
Hi, Sam.
How you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. So only a few days ago that I asked you to come on the show, and you're taken aback a bit, a little bit surprised. You thought you'd have to figure out exactly what you wanted to talk about. Have you managed to do that?
Yeah, sort of. I had a sort of couple of things in the mix, but I thought basically the chosen topic is what I'm
Yeah,
most knowledgeable about and fairly passionate about. So
yeah.
I think I've got a pretty good idea now.
You could have chosen a few different things. Is that what you're saying? You're an expert on several different topics.
Not an expert, no. It was more the passionate side. I'm quite passionate about quite a few things, but
All right, that's good.
do all trades but master of none sort of thing. Quite excited about a lot of things, but not very good at
Okay,
them.
I know that feeling. All right, so do you wanna let me know what it is, and then we'll see if I'm going to be able to hold up my end of the conversation whatsoever.
So today we're going to be talking about wood turning,
Wood
believe it or
turning,
not. Yeah,
right? Wow. I'm going to guess wood turning is. I would assume it's the specific term for essentially work that's done on a lathe. Is that right?
that's right. I mean, it covers quite a wide variety of things, but somewhere in the process there will be, yeah, using use of a lathe.
Right. Okay. And why would you consider yourself someone who's passionate or somewhat of an expert on wood turning?
Well, I've sort of been interested for about nearly 10 years, really, and I've made in the last few years sort of made a business out
Hmm.
of woodworking where wood turning was a pretty core element of that.
Right. You make a living almost out of some aspects of wood turning. So obviously
Yeah.
that I'd say that makes you a professional wood turner.
Yeah, just about. Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
And would you say there's a lot to talk about in wood turning? Is it quite a rich topic once you get? Because I think that's probably the basis of this podcast is that I want to get in contact with people who know so much more about a topic. Because the reality is that when you look at anything in enough detail, there's like a whole world of interest and kind of news and information which most people don't have an appreciation for. Would you say wood turning is one of those things?
Absolutely. There's sort of the basics, and then when you become enthusiastic about it, it kind of a whole world of nerdy possibilities kind of open
Yeah,
up. No end of equipment you can look at and buy and
yeah,
figure
yeah.
out and sort of play around with. But I mean, what I'm interested in really is getting people into it, and more specifically younger people into it, because it seems to be a hobby that's overwhelmed by old age pensioners, old men
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I'd like to do is kind of try and encourage more and more young people to do it, and sort of lead by example a little bit, because obviously I'm fairly young, and I'm doing it and enjoying it. And
Yeah, yeah. So it's merely because potentially older age people or have an interest in it, or maybe younger people don't consider it as an interest. But there's nothing preventing someone as young as us taking this up.
oh God, absolutely not. No, not at all.
All right, welcome back. Hey, Lawrence again.
Hi.
So I'm feeling pretty good, if I'm honest. I think I have at least a basic understanding of wood turning.
Good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So for people who don't have the advantage of being an expert like the both of us, what is wood turning? Do you wanna kind of give a 2 sentence rundown to someone who has no idea?
Basically, spinning pieces of wood very quickly and attacking them with chisels,
Yeah.
tools, which shape the wood into pretty much anything that's round.
Right. Okay. So it's a form of woodwork. You do it to kind of make something useful or beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a lot of the round wooden objects that you'll find, like bowls and staircase banisters, things like that.
Yeah.
They're all have been turned one way or another on a lathe.
Yeah.
Wood turn, basically.
Yeah, and a lathe is kind of like the machine that you use it. It's got kind of two pins, one at either end, and you put the wood between those two pins, and then it spins it really, really fast. And then the idea being is that the wood moves, and you keep your chisel or whatever tool you use still, and kind of move it up and down along the wood, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and what you're actually referring to there is with the two pins,
Yeah,
it's a type of turning we call spindle turning.
right.
So there are that's basically the start of a conversation we might have about holding pieces of wood
Yeah,
basically on the lathe.
yeah, because
But
obviously they're going to spin very fast, and you want them to be attached reassuringly to the lathe.
absolutely, yeah. And the beginner, this is something that a beginner wood turner will have to learn the hard way. The occasional black eye might occur, or
Okay,
there's, I mean, even having done it for a few years, you still get the occasional piece of wood flying off the lathe.
right, okay.
But
I'm gonna go out there and say that the other type of attaching wood to your lathe is something called chuck, right? Chuck turning.
yeah, I mean, there are a few ways of doing it. A fairly modern invention, sort of in the last 20 years or so, is a wood turning chuck,
Mm,
which is basically it's quite similar to a sort of handheld drill. Basically, that has three sort of jaws that you can wind to clamp the drill bit. Basically, it's the same principle in a wood turning chuck. It's basically in the case of wood turning chucks, it's four jaws
yeah.
which are adjustable, sort of in and out, have sort of 1 inch of travel in and out, and
Mm.
they basically clamp onto the piece of wood, or sometimes actually expand into a recess in the piece of wood.
Okay, so one way or another, they can apply pressure to hold it, and by doing that, you only need to attach it at one end of the lathe. Whereas
That's
with
right.
spindles, I imagine you're kind of it's the pressure of two pins kind of pushing inwards, which holds it in place.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's backtrack a little bit and talk a bit more about kind of wood turning and lathes as a concept.
Yeah.
Why you have, from what I know about your profession and what you do, you have kind of a huge variety of skills, all relating to working with wood and other materials. But why would you choose turning wood over any other kind of technique? What makes it good or useful to you? Why would you be particularly interested in it?
I mean,
Why should other people be interested in it?
I think the reason other people should be interested in it is because it's a very, well, there's numerous reasons. I think first of all, it's incredibly satisfying,
Mm.
and you can walk into your workshop or your shed or your garage, and half an hour later you can come out with something, and it might be, something quite reasonable. The other thing is, I think a large reason why sort of it's become quite popular with retired people is that there is kind of a sort of wider social context that it sort of inhabits, where there's a lot of wood turning clubs and
Oh, right.
societies and things that people go to.
Yeah.
And they're certainly not sort of glamorous,
No.
exciting places, but they sort of where generally the audience is kind of retired, mainly men,
Yeah.
and they all go there and discuss their latest projects and latest tools and things like that
Yeah.
to go. And I mean, if they're actually they're quite good fun. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I'm sure they are. And as you alluded to earlier, there's probably a lot to talk about once you get involved in that kind of uh, more detailed culture and kind of minute differences between things, which when you are somewhat of an expert and someone who's interested, those things become quite important to you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's just a great sort of place to share your hobby with other people and share your what you've managed to make and all that sort of thing. It's quite a satisfying experience, sort of sharing what you've managed
Yeah,
to
I
do.
bet. And I bet it's a good environment to learn in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
and a lot of the folk that go to these, like I said, are quite generally older people, and I think I mean, the young generation, which is sort of the way I learned wood turning
Yeah.
was on the internet and
Yeah.
through reading books and things. But I think the older generation, might not find that quite as accessible as I did.
Yeah, of course, and I think there's probably a lot to be said for learning by doing, and also learning through other people.
Yeah, through seeing it firsthand, I think it's quite a big, a, a, a good thing. 'Cause the thing that you can do with seeing demonstrations live is that you can ask questions and things like that. Whereas, you can tell them to stop and do that again or whatever. Whereas
Yeah, yeah.
on YouTube videos, it's not quite that easy.
No, exactly. So you said for someone trying to imagine this with wood turning, you've got a spinning piece of wood, and as you, it's kind of destructive in that you remove material from it. But I guess you could say it's an advantage and a limitation in that you only make symmetrical things, right?
Um,
Am I wrong?
I mean, generally speaking, 95% of wood turning,
Yeah,
or what wood turners do, is making symmetrical round things.
yeah, yeah,
But part of what I'm interested in really is that's the sort of basic wood turning which people spend their whole careers doing, and it like creates some truly mind-blowing, incredible things.
yeah.
But there's also a whole world of um, turning out there that people doesn't get quite so much credit, or
It's the underground wood turning scene.
well, not really, but I mean, there's a whole world of ornamental turning, which is where it basically requires you get ornamental lathes, which are sort of different sorts of lathes, and you can create all sorts of incredible finishes and details on wood turned items
Yeah,
using an ornamental lathe, and they are, to a certain extent, basically you start with a blank, which is a round turned object, and then you
yeah,
can sort of mechanically carve, sort of using an ornamental lathe, carve into the blank,
right.
and create sort of incredible geometric repetitive patterns. And that, I mean, itself is, I haven't done very much of it, but it's an incredibly mathematical,
Yeah.
sort of engineering based sort of process.
Yeah, so for someone who enjoys that kind of aspect of things, in that it sounds to me it's very much the coming together of some technical aspects in terms of the basic knowledge and how to do it, and obviously there's a certain amount of engineering involved in setting things up and using things correctly. Then there's more of kind of a labor and a skill involved as well, things which potentially couldn't be taught without doing it. And then what you're saying as well is that there's very much a design and kind of art element involved as well, in that, and that's obviously going to be hugely subjective.
Yeah, absolutely. And the art side, I think, in most cases, is kind of put to the wayside really a bit. And
Oh, right.
obviously, there are a lot of people that. What I'm saying is, for the hobbyist,
Yeah,
the art side quite frequently is, they just want to make things that look all right and
yeah, yeah,
they're happy with. And there are obviously wood turners out there that sculptural wood turners, and want to make things that are absolutely beautiful and having fantastic form and things like that. Whereas
yeah,
I think, as I said before, what I'm interested in is not really worrying about any of that and just getting younger people into it really, and
yeah.
exploring any aspect of it that they find interesting really.
Literally anything, please.
Yeah. It's just yeah, I just find that world is dominated by retired men, and it should.
Yeah.
I think it's something that I sort of immediately fell in love with as soon as I had a go on a lathe, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, and you feel like a lot of other people could get some enjoyment from it, and the whole endeavor would go forward because of that.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that there are so many people doing it, and there's not an awful lot to show from it. There's not. I mean, we haven't really advanced that much in the last 10 years,
Right.
in what's possible and what we can do and things like that. And I mean, I'm slightly hypocritical because I mean, I don't think I'm doing any particularly groundbreaking stuff,
Yeah.
but I certainly think with this amount of people interested and this amount of energy behind it, something good should be happening out of it. And it's sort of, we haven't really advanced very much in the last 10 years.
See, so it's in a little bit of a stall, and I think, and you're right in thinking this, in my opinion, but getting obviously a larger crowd of people involved and creating a kind of a culture which is less narrowly focused in kind of the demographics that you described would help it move forward. And I think the more exposure something gets as well, the more people are attracted to it, and the more people who take it up and make their first mistakes and all those kind of things, that eventually leads to people trying things and probably failing to begin with, but trying things which no one's ever done before.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you have to get to a certain level, I think, before you can realize what people haven't done before and try things. But I mean, if you look, I mean, the wood turning scene over in America is huge,
Yeah.
and although it's not really to my taste, they make some incredible things, and they do have a sort of younger generation becoming interested.
But there's a continental taste difference.
There is, yeah, and I mean, I don't personally, I think most of their stuff's not very nice, but
Right.
that's
Okay.
just a matter of my personal taste and
Yeah.
cultural differences. But the things that they can do,
Yeah.
they really are doing sort of very interesting new things that have never been done before.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly in the last sort of 20 or 30 years or something,
Mm-hmm.
they've been doing quite a lot of work with resin
Mm.
and combining other materials, which is something that people do over here a little bit, but not anything like to the same sort of level or rigor as they do in the States.
Yeah. So let's imagine if I was someone who has had an interest in wood turning, how quickly could I expect to be somewhat handy and useful on a lathe? Is it something where I'm going to have to invest a huge amount of time? I mean, it sounds like there's a very, very high roof on the amount of skill and ability you could have in it, which is obviously great for someone who's going to get invested for a long time period. But if this is something I just wanted to try out, is it something I could get a reasonable amount of satisfaction from quickly?
I think that's the beauty of wood turning, and I think that is why, in many respects, it's so much easier to get into than a lot of other aspects of woodworking. There are sort of taster courses everywhere in the UK, hundreds of them. And I mean, you can go from a complete, we've never done it before, to having turned a reasonable, quite nice bowl under the guidance of someone that's been doing it for years and years and years, in half a day.
Oh.
And I think you can also, within a couple of days or maybe even one long day of being taught by someone, you can actually then go off and learn in your shed or your garage perfectly safely, and actually be able to produce results very, very quickly. And I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. But I think that's probably something which might not be obvious to someone from the outside.
No.
As someone who's seen a certain amount of people doing woodwork and things, it's very much got there is a certain amount of romanticism to it, but in that people assume that it's therefore very difficult and kind of a labor of love and something which you need to be very heavily invested in. But you're saying that's not the case at all.
No, I don't think that is the case. I mean, to produce things that are exquisite, exquisite things, and obviously it does take hours and hours and days and years to become a master of the art.
But that shouldn't put people off.
But it shouldn't put people off at all, because you can produce results, very reasonable results. You can do a lot of things very, very quickly. And if you compare that to learning to ski or something, it's probably a week before you can ski down a slope without worrying too much properly. I learned by basically someone that really knew what they're doing. Showing me how to do it for about an hour. And then I went into my own garage and had a go at my dad's lathe, and after a few bruised knuckles and things like that later, and I've kind of taught myself, which I think is certainly for me was fine.
Yeah. So you said before that obviously it takes many years to get up to a level where you produce things which, for people who know what they're doing, would say are really exquisite or fine or technically amazing. I think it's probably reasonably fair to assume that you're included in that category, since you make and sell things, and people certainly believe that they're worth your time and effort and the money that people spend. What separates you from someone who's potentially less experienced? If you were to look at a piece of work, what would you look for? What would blow you away if you saw it?
First of all, I don't know if I quite fit into the sort of master category.
Right. Still.
But the fact of the matter, what's great about wood turning is the fact that I can I don't know, a bowl or something like that.
Yeah,
'Cause,
yeah,
I mean, everyone produces bowls, but
yeah,
I can produce a bowl, and a beginner can produce a bowl, and
yeah,
that's incredible. In other woodworking, I can produce a boardroom table.
yeah,
A beginner, no hope of ever,
yeah, yeah,
sort of. So I think that's the great thing about it, and basically the difference between someone that's been doing it for years and years and years and a beginner in the actual products itself
mm,
is just that you find that if someone's starting out, they can never quite get the proportions of things right, and that they
yeah,
make
yeah,
things a bit thick and a bit bumpy and a bit lumpy.
yeah,
So there's a sort of overall shape of the piece, which generally is a lot better if you know what you're doing. And there's also the sort of well, there's quite a few aspects, but the two main things are the shape of the piece and the finish.
and that's to do with the quality of how you kind of wield the tool.
Generally speaking, it's to do with the way that you use the tool and using the right tool for the job and
Yeah,
making sure your tool's sharp. But it's also making sure the lathe is spinning at the right speed
mm,
and various other things. I mean, as a beginner, what you'll find is you won't be able to sharpen your tools very well, and
yeah,
you'll spend a lot of your time sanding,
mm,
which is, and you'll very soon realize that actually you don't want to be spending all your time sanding because it's
yeah,
boring. You want to
yeah,
be using the tools more.
yeah,
And basically, a really experienced, really, really good wood turner, if they're turning, normal, well, or sort
yeah,
of fairly mellow, easy to work with woods, is they actually won't sand very much at all.
yeah,
They have so much control over the tool that they get exactly the right form and shape of the piece that they want
the first time round.
first time round, and they get a very good finish off the tool.
So there's a whole kind of like I kind of said before, but it's really true that there is almost no roof on it. So we're going to move into a slightly different segment now. I'm going to ask you kind of what would your like top tips be for beginners? What like typical mistakes a beginner would make, and what kind of, I mean, on a realistic, practical level, what kind of money should someone be looking at investing just to get started in wood turning?
Okay, well, we'll answer the money question first.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Say I've never done any wood turning before. I want to be able to produce after a little bit of work and learning like a half decent bowl.
Okay, and it kind of depends on whether you want to do it, whether you want to continue doing it, or whether you want to
Oh, I
just give it a
see.
bash. Because I
Yeah.
mean, there are basically two options. You can either spend 150 quid, get yourself
Yeah.
a lathe with a couple of chisels, a couple of tools, and give it a go.
Mm.
Or you can spend sort of 500 quid, get yourself a halfway decent lathe and
Yeah.
a grinder to sharpen the tools,
Yeah.
and then give that a go. Or if you want, I mean, the full sort of professional or the sort of basic professional kit that you need is a 600 quid's worth of lathe,
Yeah.
or maybe a bit more than that, and another 200 quid on tools, and that's sort of
But that
very
but
basic professional
yeah.
level.
Yeah. But that's still not, I would still consider that to be pretty reasonable for what you'd consider to be a basic professional setup.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of assumes that you've got a basic professional workshop as well. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you kind of need a bandsaw and things like that. But I mean, even if you look at a sort of proper professional production wood turner,
Mm.
their whole workshop, the contents of their workshop, is probably not more than sort of, if all they do is wood turning, it's probably not much more than sort of £5,000 worth of kit. And I mean, they do it for a living, so.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's really not very much.
No, because if you compare that to sort of, if you're doing it as a hobbyist,
Yeah.
and if you're a keen hobbyist, you might spend £1,000
Yeah. Yeah.
on getting a workshop to, well, on kitting out a sort of basic, halfway decent lathe and workshop.
Mm. Mm.
If you compare that to sort of a golf membership or something for a year, then
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
laughing, really, like.
Yeah, and something which I know a little bit about is kind of professional photographers and kind of a professional photographer with 5 grand's worth of equipment, I mean, it depends what level you're talking on and things, but that 5 grand in the professional world of photography does not get you very far at
No.
all. Not
No.
very far at all.
Yeah.
So for someone who considers themselves, a professional, makes a living out of it, and they have 5 grand's worth of equipment, that's incredibly reasonable. But
Yeah.
obviously now we've already slipped to like the top end of things. But as you started, you could kind of get started for maybe 150 to 200 pounds,
Yeah.
and that's if you wanted it for yourself.
It's a sort of sliding scale because professional wood turners, you can spend as much as you want, really, and
Yeah.
and you can buy lathes. You can buy a brand new lathe, a decent lathe for 4 grand if you want. But
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it sort of depends on what your needs and what sort of work you're going to be producing. So yeah, I mean, it can be a very expensive thing, but but at the same time, you can get into it and get fairly competent with, £1,000 or 500 quid or something.
Yeah, exactly. So we're getting on a little bit now. So I've got 2 more questions to round us up. All right.
Sounds
So
good.
one is that we've focused very much on kind of the skill of the people who use it, which is obviously very important, and the equipment they use, which is also important. One thing we've almost entirely neglected is kind of the substrate, the thing that you're working with, which is the wood.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's got to be hugely important in terms of what you can and can't do with certain types of wood, what are better for some things and worse for other types of things.
Yeah.
Give us a rundown. Where does someone even begin on that?
So basically, hardwoods are easier or generally more recommended for lathe work because it's easier to get a better finish on them.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend a lot of money buying these. And I mean, for a beginner, what you're looking for is something that is fairly clean and even density and fairly soft. Well, softness isn't too much of an issue, and it's got fairly tight grain. What you're after is a nice, even, tight-grained hardwood like beech or maple. Yeah, and then, but I mean, the beauty of wood turning as well is that you pretty much anything is fine as long as it's not rotten, and so long as it's anything's fine. I mean, all of the bowls that I produce, I mean, I do various other things with wood turning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just using bowls as an example because it's something that I do occasionally. All of the timber I get for that is just wood that I find on. Either I buy it from a tree surgeon in log form, or
and cut it down.
They're just logs that I've found on the side of the road and said, found the farmer and said, I could use that. And it's the same for. I mean, when I started out wood turning, I just went to my grandmother's wood pile and nicked a load of wood from there. It really doesn't have to be fancy.
Yeah, so realistically, when you're getting started out, you as long as it's something that's still wood and not mulch, then you're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing as well with when you're starting out is make sure the piece of wood is sound. Make sure it's not going to, going to put it on the lathe and you're going to switch the lathe on, the whole thing's going to fly apart in your face.
Yeah.
And the obvious thing with a sort of that kind of stems from that is the safety aspect of using a lathe. You really do need to know, at least go on YouTube and look at all of the sort of main safety aspects first.
Yeah, of course.
Because you really can have some quite nasty accidents if you don't know the basics before you start. And one of those is sort of wearing face masks and protecting your eyes and things like that.
Yeah, be safe, kids.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, any old wood will do really, unless it's going to fall apart,
Right. Okay. So that's quite a long-winded way of just saying, when you get started, just use whatever you want, whatever you've got to hand.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But look at YouTube videos first. Read some books first.
Or go to a local course near you.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the last section, which is a new section I've recently introduced, which is where I'm going to flip this round slightly. And by using the power of the internet, I'm going to kind of test your knowledge slightly, and also
Here
your ability to
Blimey.
kind of guess what communities are talking about within woodworking. All right.
Right.
So do you know of the word? There's a very popular website called Reddit. Do you know of that?
Kind of. That's the sort of, isn't it like BuzzFeed or something like that?
It's a message forum board,
Right.
but it's one of the largest in the world, where anyone can set up their own kind of miniature forum within that to talk about whatever they're interested in. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm currently at Reddit r/turning, which is the subreddit for wood turning,
Yep.
and I've sorted the posts by their popularity, and I've sorted them by their popularity for all time. So since it's existed, which has been what looks like a few years now, and it also, I'll give you another clue in that it looks like it's fairly American users
Okay.
who use it. Now, even I, who know nothing about this, can see is that the first top few posts are about a particular kind of wood turning, and I'm going to ask you to try and guess or work out, and I can give you clues as you go on about what kind of technique they're all kind of raving about.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think I need a bit of a clue.
So, so the very top one is about a type of flower bowl, which they say they tried doing something different by making a something bowl with curved lines. So there's a key word here which I'm not going to read out, but someone made another type of bowl which uses several different types of wood in the same bowl by the end of it.
Yeah, segmented turning.
It's
Yeah,
segmented
yeah,
turning.
yeah. You're right. It's basically gluing up lots of little blocks of wood,
Yeah.
very, very carefully, and then and normally they're sort of contrasting wood, so you'll have a dark wood and a light wood next to each other,
Mm.
and then you turn that, and you end up with obviously a turned form, but
Yeah.
with that you get this, well, sort of any pattern you want. You can get sort of chessboard
Yeah.
to it, or anything really.
And is that fairly advanced?
It is, yeah, and that's something that you would need more than just the basic kit for. You'd need,
Yeah.
well, at a very basic level, a decent chop saw, or probably really a decent table saw for. So that is sort of advanced wood turning, but it's quite popular. I mean, to do it commercially, to make money out of it, is quite difficult because it's a very labour-intensive process.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, very important in wood turning.
Yeah. Okay. So what's cutting edge for you at the moment? That's what we're going to end on. I'm going to ask you where are your endeavours at the moment?
I'm quite interested in combining other materials with wood.
Non-wood materials with wood.
Indeed. So recently I've been playing around with resin, but more excitingly, I've been playing around with introducing metal to wood.
Right.
And
Can you turn metal?
yes, so on a wood turning lathe, you can turn non-ferrous metals, which is basically
Right.
anything but, steel or iron.
Iron. Yeah.
So you can turn brass, and you can turn copper, aluminium, anything like that. And I've been patinating brass, which is basically where you attack brass with lots of chemicals to create an exciting colour or pattern or finish on the metal.
Yeah.
And basically I've been combining patinated brass with wood turning, which, I mean, combining metal with wood is a pretty tricky thing to do because wood expands and contracts. Is it hygroscopic, I think? No, not hygroscopic. It's something where basically, if there's water in the environment, if the air is humid, then it will absorb that water.
Oh, I see.
And therefore expand. If the environment's dry, it will shed its water.
Obviously, metal doesn't do that.
Metal doesn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, metal expands and contracts minute, well, fairly small amounts with heat.
Yeah.
But nothing like, it doesn't move anything like as much as wood. And combining the two is quite tricky because the wood wants to move and the metal doesn't. And therefore you end up with cracked pieces of wood or things like that. So the last few months have been sort of working with coming up with a design that allows the wood to move and allows the metal to still be attached to the wood, but
Yeah.
not, for them to be working in harmony rather than sort of pulling each other apart.
Yeah, of course. So that you're trying to work out a way to kind of let the wood breathe while still being incorporated into the metal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. So if someone was interested in kind of being able to see some wood turning or being able to see some of your work, is there somewhere they can go?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my name's Laurence Brand, and I'm sort of searchable on Google. And I've got a website, laurencebrand.com, where you'll be able to see my work. And wood turning, I mean, just go on YouTube. Just the only thing with YouTube is be aware that not everyone is teaching you about health and safety, and there are things that wood turners do on YouTube which are not necessarily, the right things to do health and safety wise. So
yeah.
But wood turning on YouTube is absolutely fantastic. There's loads of different things, and there's no end of free information online about equipment if you want to get started, and processes and things like that. So yeah, I definitely recommend going on the internet. And I mean, and if you don't like the internet, books. There's loads of books.
Yeah, great,
cracking books.
Yeah. So if you're not a fan of the internet, go to your library.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to end it there. Thanks very much, Laurence, for coming on the show. Hope you've somewhat enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Sam.
No worries. To everyone listening, thanks very much for joining us again. This was episode 8 of what I'm going to announce to be a 10-part series. So we're getting close to the end now, and we'll have to see what we're going to do for our 10th episode. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.